So this was a really fun episode with my friend Christina Krause. She goes over how important data is in your business, whether it's real estate or any other business. We talk about the lack of women in real estate and why that is and how we can improve that. She also talked about what it was like going bankrupt after owning almost 300 rental units and starting all over. So you don't want to miss this episode. It was a really fun interview. Now let's jump into it.
Welcome to the Ryan Pineda Show, where our mission is to invest,
I only expect to make money in things that I understand.
innovate,
It's about believing in the future and thinking that the future will be better than the past.
and inspire.
I am much more likely to hit my goal just due to putting it out there.
You're now rocking with the best.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Ryan Pineda Show. I think today we are making history, and it's not good. It's not good history because this should happen a long time ago. But we have our very first female guest, Christina Krause, who is absolutely killing it in the real estate game, helping tons of investors across the country. What's up?
Feeling good. I love being the first at things.
There
So
you go.
I'm really happy to do this with you. I think it's cool. I actually like seeing you at the various events and things like that, getting to chill and hang a little bit and then talk like this because we've never done this before.
Yeah, I know.
that's
So
neat.
the first time I met you was back in 2018 at our friend John Martina's event.
Okay.
Sales
No,
team.
yes.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought it was CG, but it's actually, I remember that now.
Yeah.
I was at your guys' table. I think we were talking ping pong.
Yeah, we were talking ping pong in the office, and it was funny because Sean Bob was there with us, and Sean Bob, you know, he saw you at CG. He's like, "What's up, Christina?" And you like kind of brushed him off because you were like, "Okay, what's up?" He's like, "Wow, she doesn't remember." I was like sitting at the table with her,
That's
just
so bad. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Sean Bob.
yeah. Well, don't worry, everybody hates on Sean Bob in all the videos, so it ain't nothing new. But yeah, so that was the first time we met, and you gave a really good presentation on direct mail and analytics, and I was like, wow, okay, like that's really cool. And then, you know, I joined CG after that. I wasn't a member before, and
Yeah.
met a lot of cool people and kept seeing you. And then we run together at Tim's event, which was super funny because when I realized like some people were commenting, they're like, "You never have female guests." I was like, "You're right. Like I need to do a better job." And so I reached out to like every woman that I knew that's like, you know, crushing it, doing good things. And so I reached out to you. And you're like, "Yeah, you know, my schedule is, you know, XYZ. I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be in Austin next week." And you're like, "I'm going to be in Austin next week."
Right.
And then we're both speaking.
So it's perfect.
Yeah, I'm like,
See?
"All right, we're going to get it done."
Fates.
So,
I like it.
Yeah. Well, for those who don't know who you are, why don't you just give them a quick recap?
Yep. So my company is Postal Impact. And I should say that's the primary company. That's what most people know us by. We are a data analytics company that does marketing. We do lead gen and direct mail marketing, completely done for you marketing for real estate investors all across the nation. We do lists and things like that, but primarily what we are is we're a data analytics company. We analyze data. We pull lists using kind of nationwide global insight type of data. And then what we do that I don't know that anybody else does is we actually track that data, track your leads all the way through your sales pipeline, and then we use that insight to further, you know, kind of niche down your lists. I don't want you marketing forever to 25,000, 30, 40,000 names every single month, unless that's what you want to do. But most people really want to find the 20 to 30% of their list where 70 to 80% of their yield is coming from, and that's where we come in, kind of studying all of those trends. We're doing some really cool stuff right now with adding market study to it. We're finding so much that there are always, the emerging and the declining markets. We've always looked at that, but what we're finding in this kind of moment that we're living in is that it's it's so specific that you can actually get into the zip codes of a particular territory and determine, like, based on zip codes, what's emerging and what's declining.
Yeah, you just I just watched your presentation earlier today, and you talked about that. You're like, it's not about just a market anymore.
Yeah.
We used to be like, hey, we'll target Las Vegas. And
right.
now you're like, hey, you need to go zip code specific to really niche down.
Yeah, 100%. You need to look at, and you can do it to everything. But what I'm telling you is that if you're chasing yield, really big investors do that all over the country, right? So they're just looking at emerging markets, which is one of the reasons why we knew to do it. And then they're chasing yield all over the country. It doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be in their backyard. They're looking at the maps and kind of heat maps, if you will, of what the market trends are doing, and that's how they're determining what county, territory, state to go into, which is a really elegant way to do it. I mean, if you think about it, if you've got a limited amount of money to spend, why wouldn't you spend it in those kind of hot zones?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure. So, man, how much data do you guys have? Like, how many letters have you guys sent? Like, what does it look like?
You know what? I need to get that specific metrics, because honestly, millions and millions of points of data. And it's funny because I remember when we were first starting to study data, people would always say to me, "What are you going to do with that?" And I swear to goodness, my answer was always, I don't know. I just know.
I just know I have a lot of it.
I just know that, and I really did feel like this because this, we started doing this, I don't know, 6 years ago. And I said, I don't know, but I just know that it's going to be really important. At some point, I know it's going to be really important. And the way that we use data now is not just individually with our clients, but we are really now a kind of a done-for-you, easy button service provider. And we use all of that data to create solutions, to create kind of break-the-box solutions. Because once you are under the hoods of that many real estate investors, what I find, I don't care how big you are, how small you are, most real estate investors all have the same the same pain points. Mm-hmm. They fail in the same places because we're similar people, right? So what we do is we use that data to identify where those breaks are and then create solutions that help people really kind of monetize or convert their leads, as much as they possibly can.
Cool. Yeah, and I'll tell you, once we started getting the data in our business on marketing and the KPIs and everything dialed in, it made it so much better, because I see a lot of investors. So like, you're new and you don't have data yet, right? So you're just throwing stuff against the wall, seeing what works. But then as you scale, you start to spend a lot of money, and you're like, hey, I better optimize this, or I'm just throwing money and burning it.
That's right.
And for us, we've been spending, probably $50,000 a month for the last, few months on houses, or, our direct marketing for flipping and wholesaling. And it's been good. But now we're about to do direct mail for the first time, and we bought the Audantic list, and I'm just like, man, I guess we'll just mail it all. Like, I don't even know.
Sure. No, and actually, you made a really good point. You said, as we were scaling, we realized that we can't just throw more money at that. And that's actually a really good distinction, because what you were talking about before, growing means just throwing more money at something, right? Scaling means, how do I spend the same amount of money and grow?
Yeah.
That's what data allows you to do, because otherwise it's just growth, which there's nothing wrong with that, right? But true scale is, how do I make more money, get bigger without spending any more money? That's really what scale is, and that's what data allows you to do.
100%.
Yeah.
So, how did you get to this point? I mean, like, I don't even know, like, what your background is. Like, I know you today. What was your career before all this?
Yeah. From a real estate investing standpoint, and I'm still an active investor. Postal Impact, kind of chases yield, if you will, across the country as well. But I started in 1999 as a real estate investor. I'm sure you've never heard of Carlton Sheets.
I actually have. So just because I hang around, with the OGs and stuff. So I know many people got their
start. It's a little side
with
shade right there. I hang out with the OGs. I think that makes me an OG.
So Carlton, I know he's gotten a lot of people started. For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And then Ron LeGrand, he's in CG.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
love Ron.
I've heard so many people talk about Ron, and I'll have to get him on the show.
Yeah.
Because he's like, that dude is what does Frank call him? Salty dog. And he is.
dog.
I remember I asked Ron, I was like, he did his presentation. It had nothing to do with his presentation. I go, Ron, what motivates you at this point, dude? You've
Yeah.
been like teaching people for 50 years now. You're the guy who taught wholesaling before anyone knew what it was or anything. He's like, I remember he was like, man, I just love doing it.
Yeah.
I love teaching. And I'm just sitting there thinking, man, this guy's not on social media or anything, yet he still just has this education behemoth.
Yeah. And
'cause
he's
probably 'cause
legit
he has-
out there. He's out there
dude,
talking,
he's out
speaking,
there at
teaching.
events. Like,
It's no
still-
joke.
Yeah. And it's probably because he doesn't need it because he has so much data and so many leads
Yep.
over, decades.
Yes. Yes. And by the way, for those starting out or whatever, all of us do. Okay? So it's not like if I haven't been collecting data up until this point, I don't have it. You have access to data, and then even if you don't have your own data, you have access to market data. And frankly, I mean, that's half of what you need in order to elegantly pull a list or decide how you're going to niche that list down.
And that
So-
market data is free.
Yeah, 100%. You got to
So-
learn a little bit about how to, what you're looking for and how to read it and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. So you start out, you learn from Carlton Sheets. What did you learn? Like, what were you getting into?
It's funny. I was working in a bank at the time, and I was running a floor, and they were bringing a new manager in because I was moving into a different department. So I was training that manager on how to run the floor, and then there came a week when they said, "Okay, we want you here." Just in case anything happens, but we want you in the bring a book, read something, do something. I had actually sat on that Carlton Sheets course. I bought it one time while I was on vacation, and I sat on it for like 2 years. So they said, just bring a book. We want you to be there in case something blows up, but we don't want you involved in anything. We don't want you looking at numbers. We don't want you looking at anything. So I read the Carlton Sheets course in one night because I was working nights at the time. I read it in one night, and that day I bought I found the person who sold us our first 2 properties, no money down.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And that was the beginning of kind of,
what
our
was that? Was
investment.
it a seller finance? Like, what was it?
Yeah, it was no money down. So it was like, yes, how do you get somebody to hold the note? And found the guy who sold us our first 2 duplexes, actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was cool.
So you did that.
Yep.
What happens from there?
Built up a portfolio of, I think we had about 280 doors.
Where was this at?
In Delaware.
Okay.
Yeah, believe that or not.
Yeah, I'm like, huh.
It's hard to believe there's even 280 homes in Delaware, but there are.
I was like, huh.
It's normally a conversation stopper. I tell people that all the time. I'm
I
like,
met some guys today who were in New Hampshire. I'm like, huh.
yeah, exactly. That's what I normally get.
Just these small Northeast states, you just never hear them. And
Yeah.
I didn't know where you were from, but I was like, man, she's got like, this Boston Northeast accent.
I actually was born and raised in Hawaii.
Really?
My mother's Japanese.
Wow.
So born and raised in Hawaii, came here when I was 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, moved here when I was 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Little
where you
known
get it from
facts.
then.
Little known. No, I just pick it up.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Just hanging out at these events.
And that's the truth. Like
Yeah.
at any given day, I'm going to have like a mix of some kind of weird accent. But anyway.
Yeah.
280 doors, managed another maybe 400 or 500 doors for other people. Did really, really well. And then I shared a little bit actually at Tim's event that we ultimately got into a multifam deal. We were going to convert a small apartment complex, an 80-unit apartment complex, to condos. That was 2005, 2006 when these plans were being made, and we were condoing everything off, and then the crash happened. But condo financing went away, and that is the deal that actually ultimately wiped us out there for a hot minute.
Wow. What year was that?
So 2006 is when the condo, like, things started to kind of go south a little.
Yeah.
But it took, good Lord, it took a good 3 years of us just draining every resource we had trying to
keep it
recover from
afloat.
it, keep it afloat instead of just cutting it when we should have. And we honestly felt like we were doing the best. And in hindsight, we look back and go, it would have been better for everybody involved. Everybody. We were trying to be good people. We were trying to be, have integrity and, that kind of thing, because there was capital involved.
Right.
And it would have been better for all of us had we just said, bad decision, let's move on. We had structured it to be able to do that. So we had bought it properly, structured it properly. We could have just cut it off, and we didn't. We just let it kind of drain us. That took about 3 years, and then the course of the bankruptcy, just because of the amount of property that we owned, and it was just kind of really difficult. But that took another, 3 years.
So you lost all those properties.
Everything, all of it.
So what happens? Like, how do you pick up the I've had a lot of real estate investors on the podcast, and many have shared the same story. And actually some have, had it happen multiple times. So like I'm curious to hear what happened for you.
So this is actually really interesting because I did not get back into buying real estate right away because I came out of that moment going, I don't want to buy anything unless I can literally cut a check. Like, I just don't want to borrow money because that was just such a painful. We did not write off bad debt. We didn't have bad debt. And so in my mind, it was like good debt, but good debt will take you down just as much as bad debt.
You can go broke buying good deals.
That's right. And just because it's good debt doesn't mean it can't cut you, just like bad debt can. Mm-hmm. So when we got back in, it's funny, prior to the kind of the downfall, I had known that probate leads were a very hot lead for our company. And it's funny because we had kind of trained someone locally to pull probate leads for us because it's a pretty intense process. Mm-hmm. So we had trained somebody locally to do that. And over the years, had actually connected her with other people in our network to pull probate leads for them. So she was doing that. These particular guys had spoken with me many times about coaching them through a deal. And I've never wanted to do that. That's never been my thing. But what I said ultimately to her was, I'll tell you what, I will coach you through a deal and then we'll split the deal. And then you give me, the postal impact, because she really couldn't grow it, because she wasn't networked. Her clients had been brought to the table by us and mm-hmm. by our network. Okay. So we kind of made that trade. And then I started out as a probate lead provider. We got to be a really, really big provider. And then we started doing the direct mail around it. And that's when we started noticing trends and studying, because when you do things like that nationwide, the global economy of shared data is so powerful. So studying your own data is one thing. And then combining that with a bunch of data from other people, it's magical.
So what year was that when you reached out to her and acquired Postal Impact?
So I think it was like... what is it, 2021? I think it was like 2000. So it was about, like 6 years ago.
Okay.
5-6 years ago.
2015, 2016. Yeah. Is she still with the company today? Or?
You know what's hilarious? No, she moved to North Carolina, which is one of the reasons why she was going to shut that business down. And do you know that, we knew them from before. She works for us. She came back just recently in the past couple of months, years and years later. We had a position that we needed to fill, and she now came back and works for the company.
Is that weird? Like the founder is like an employee now? Just like not even like a high level employee?
I think we were such a part of it from the start that it always kind of felt a little like that anyway. Okay. You know what I mean? Because we are the ones who kind of started her in probate.
Got it.
Right? And then brought the network to the table. So I think that helped. And now what we do today is so different than how the company started. It's funny, when she came back, she was like, oh my gosh, this is totally different than what it was. Right. We're way beyond just the probate lead at this point.
Speaking of probates, we've gone through a bunch of probates and got some good deals from it. Yeah. For us, when I look at the probate, like a lot of people, you can pull the properties that are up for auction. Like everyone knows that. Yep. But the key is trying to get the probates before they ever get to auction, Sure. And so we've always just pulled obituaries, like when we really went after it. Mm-hmm. We would just, like literally, there's like not a better way. It's just look at the obituaries and see if they own real estate or not and try to contact the heirs. It's very cumbersome.
Sure.
Like, is that really it? Like, how do you guys go about it?
Yeah. We focus on the probate lead itself. But again, what you've done is a very powerful thing in data, which is you've taken theoretically, like you've made probate is a lagging indicator, right?
They're dead.
Yeah. You're looking back and you're going, and that's how data is. Most data study is also lagging. You're looking back at what has happened, But the real power in studying data, or in what you guys did, is taking that lagging indicator and making it a leading indicator, right? So now you're going, how do I get in front of this? So if I'm studying data, how do I now use that information to get in front of the scenario and win even bigger?
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, what you've done is amazing. I mean, like in terms of like how
Yeah.
you're thinking.
Yeah.
Same thing with absentee, or, that kind of thing. Think evictions. Take a lagging indicator. We know that absentee leads, especially even right now, are some of the hottest leads out there. But how do you make that an even more powerful lead? And how do you get in front of the right people, in front of everybody else who's targeting this? So what is it that you can stack on top or layer on top, or what kind of insight can you bring to the table that allows you to be first at the door when you're knocking?
Yeah. The biggest thing that I teach our students. So guys, like, if you don't know, we have coaching programs, we have courses. You can just go get them at futureflipper.com. You can apply to be in any of the coaching programs. But the thing that I always tell our students is, you want to, we're looking at like right now, what's going on, like where are the opportunities, right?
Yeah.
And so one thing we used to tell them before COVID was, hey, okay, like pre-foreclosures, let's talk about that, right? There's different levels to this. There's right when they're going to get, they get the sale date.
Yep.
You're late. Like, how many people have talked to that person? Doesn't mean you can't get a deal.
Right.
Like, we get plenty of deals because now time's against them. But if you could get to the pre-foreclosure way before they're like realizing they need to sell, at least you've been talking to them, you've been building a relationship.
That's
and
right.
even if they don't want to sell to you then, they're probably going to sell to you when it is time, because you've been nurturing that lead.
That's right.
But I'm looking at it now and I'm like, okay, forbearance. Everybody's in for, not everybody, but the people who would have been in pre-foreclosure are now in forbearance. And you can get a forbearance list. What are you seeing on the forbearance side, like with these sellers and the data that you have?
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, at the end of the day, those lists, the bankruptcy lists, the the lease pendants, the foreclosure, that stuff, it like they dropped off.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Yeah. So, and seriously, they were super highly performing lists, the go-to lists for people, and then the performance of those lists just completely dropped off. And what happened with the vast majority of people is that they dropped those out of their marketing because they stopped performing. Right. Same thing with eviction lists. Any of those financial pain points that, and it makes sense, right? Because the stimulus removed the fear and the pain in the immediate moment. But here's what we know: that pain's still coming, right? And you said something that I think is really powerful in marketing right now, that people are not. I get why you kind of don't want to do it, because it takes more discipline, it takes more patience. But I really think the people who are going to win in marketing as we go forward are the people who are willing to invest in relationship, I like to call it journey marketing, or relationship marketing, if you will. But you've got to be willing to put some time and effort into these people who are going to sell you their home, and you are going to make a lot of money off of them.
Yeah.
What are you willing to do to bring to the table that makes you worthy of somebody entrusting you with that kind of profit margin?
Yeah.
I'm like, what can you do for them to serve them outside of even just taking the getting them out of the situation that they're in with the home? Is there
Right.
more you can do?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, you talked about that at your presentation this morning. You said that I think the statistic was 70% of deals or something are, they like, I'll let you say it because
Which one? I was throwing out a lot of stats. Sorry.
It was the first one where you said,
Oh, the phone.
70% of people will get it, that they're getting it the first try.
Yeah.
Talking to that person. And then those people are only getting like 8% of their deals from follow-up. Like if they don't get that first try, they ain't getting it. But
Yeah.
then there's other companies that they get 70-80% of their deals through follow-up.
Yeah.
Explain that.
So there's the two huge areas of missed opportunity. In fact, I think for most real estate investors, the front and the back end represent the biggest areas of missed opportunity. So the first thing that we recently did is we did a 3-year study of our clients' data, and we found that when we studied thousands, and so I'm not talking about like we looked at 10 deals, thousands and thousands of deals is what we looked at, and determined that 76%, if we did take out the outliers, there are a few outliers that were skewing numbers.
Okay.
And when you're in data, obviously you want to take out the outliers. But once we removed the outliers, 76% of the deals that closed came from motivated sellers where the phone was picked up initially.
That's right.
That's staggering, because so many of us, even in the room, I polled the room and said, how many of you make it an absolute priority to answer the phone? And I bet it wasn't even 5%.
And these are high-level guys.
Super high-level people.
Yeah.
And we tell ourselves the same thing. It's like, man, most of these people are just opt-outs. I don't know, maybe they are. But more than likely what you're doing is you're probably telling yourself a story. You really need to track that to see what percentage of the calls are actually opt-outs.
Yeah.
Because if I take an opt-out call, it just feels like I took 100 of them. You just feel like you got beat up, and you feel like, I've taken calls where I'm like, I don't even want to do real estate anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I've been a part of those. Now that I don't take the calls anymore, but now I just get it in the comments. So
yeah,
it's the same thing.
Perfect. It's there forever and ever, burning through your eyeballs. I love it. At least you can hang up and try to forget about the conversation. But to your point, it's like the thing that distinguishes us at this point, and the thing that will distinguish you from your competition is humanity.
Yeah.
Everything is so automated. It's like virtual, no touch. How do I outsource and automate? And I'm a big advocate of outsourcing and automating. But the reason why I'm a big advocate of that is so that you can free up your time to inject your humanity when it really counts.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that is what distinguishes us from the iBuyers. I think that really that's the only thing. That's the only advantage, not distinguish, but it's the advantage that we have, and we don't utilize it enough.
Yeah. And same thing with the realtors. At the end of the day, you have to provide the best customer service, which, automation can't really do.
Yeah.
And that physical, or the human relationship, you called it. But just so we're clear, you said that 76% of deals that people got were because they answered the phone that first initial call.
First call.
So basically, if they did not answer it, their odds are severely limited.
Significantly. And we were actually shocked. I was not expecting it to be that compelling. Right? Yeah. I didn't think it was going to be that compelling. But same thing with follow-up. So when we looked at on the back end of things, of our clients who had a follow-up system in place, and I mean a nice one, not just like, I'll like a legitimate follow-up system in place. 74% of their deals came in follow-up 30 or more days after the initial point of contact. For those of our clients who did not have a follow-up system in place, or it was loosey-goosey, only 8% of their deals came in follow-up.
That's crazy.
It's insane, you know? And we tell ourselves a story because that
maybe
works
maybe
us.
the other people are like, yeah, we're just so good at closing them that first time.
I'm so glad you said that. I almost was going to say it because that's what everybody's like, oh, that's because we're that good. You want to know what's really funny? When we looked at the number of deals or the percentage of deals that they were closing in the first 30 days, almost exactly the same percentage, like 20. It was like 23. One group was like 23%. The other was 24 or 25%. I mean, they were
identical.
both closing similarly on the front end. The other guys were just capturing so much more opportunity on the back end.
Yeah.
So again, that's these stories we tell ourselves, I swear.
Yeah.
And we all do it where somebody gives you something or says something and you're like, oh yeah, but I'm this.
Yeah.
Or I'm,
My friend Brett, he's been on the show, and he's a social media data guy, super into data. And I forget his saying, but the second part of his saying is like, he's like, people lie, but in data we trust, or something like that.
Yeah.
And he's just like, always, you know what? It may work, but like, let's look at the data and see.
That's right.
There's
Data doesn't lie.
Data doesn't lie.
And I don't think any of us realize how much we are in our own emotions. Like, we're making emotional gut check decisions on so many things. And it is astounding to me how often I think something's going to look a certain way, or I think even just from pattern recognition, I know how that's going to turn out. You look at the data and it's just not true.
It's just like, why are you doing this?
Yes.
Once we got accountable with tracking not only data for our marketing and other stuff. I mean, I track data for this podcast, for my YouTube channel. Like, I want to know what videos perform, what, my demographic is. Like, you have all this access to data. It's what's made Facebook, this behemoth, because they have so much data on everybody.
Sure.
But you also have to keep the data on performance as well. It's not just about the marketing piece. So, like, we have to track, hey, how many calls are our sales guys making? How many deals are they closing? How long are they on the phones? Like, there's all these other points of data that, if you're not willing to do, you'll never scale, unfortunately. Like, and I don't say that to scare people. Like, look, if you've ever watched me and you're like, Ryan, I want to flip a house. Like, I don't want to do all this data and stuff. By all means, you can hustle and flip houses without the data. Just go out there, get good deals. I mean, look, I did that. You can make hundreds of thousands. I know people that wing it and can do over $1 million.
Yep.
But to get to the sophisticated level and really scale up, there's just no way to do it without data.
I say all the time, and I'm actually glad that you said that, because it doesn't have to be, you could do whatever you want, right? Just understand that you cannot build a business on hustle and charisma alone. So if you want, like, the beauty of real estate is that transactions represent such a big number for us that you're right. And I know them. You can say, I don't want to have all the constraints of business and have to be a business person and have to look at all these things. I just want to go out and, kill stuff.
Yeah.
Fine. As long as you understand that you've got a ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, and furthermore, when your charisma runs out, and it does at some point, you know, when you're not the hot guy anymore, and I use that term loosely, I'm saying, when whatever it is that you are is not resonating with people anymore, you might struggle, you know. But if you're in a moment where you're like, this is how I'm operating best, fine.
Well, the way I compare it, look, I was the guy who's getting by with hustle and charisma for a long time.
Yeah.
And it got me very far. But like you said, I hit a cap and I was like, how do I get past this? Like, I want to grow. I want to continue. And I realized that it was because of systems, processes, data. I was ignoring it. I'm like, dude, everything I touch turns to gold.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't, I don't need that. I remember reading a book called Measure What Matters.
Remember that book.
Great book that it was basically, saying, hey, data, KPIs, you got to have a scoreboard. You got to do all this. And I remember reading it and being so arrogant that I was like, I don't need that. And this is like, I'm pretty certain that one of the founders of Google wrote it. He's like, you got to have data to build. And I was like, nah, no, you don't.
I'm doing so good.
Yeah, like, dude, I can just, I'll touch whatever I want. It turns to gold. And, then I had my first real big setback, losing hundreds of thousands of dollars on some bad deals and just realizing, dude, I don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And I think every real estate investor or business owner, entrepreneur, everyone goes through that, because nobody starts their business with data and just like this sophistication. It's always, hey, like, let's drive revenue. Let's get customers. Let's get clients, and we'll figure out the pieces as they come. I mean, that's business.
Yep.
But, to get to the next level, it requires sophistication. And what I'm realizing now is, for me to get to the even next level, it requires a whole new skill set of, data, strategy, planning.
This is biz dev now.
Yeah.
Yes, wholesaling and flipping might be your vehicle, but I mean, the way that you're going to get that thing to drive is you have to become a business owner. I really like how you said what you said too, when you said, because that is exactly what I used to say. We got into the multifam deal that took us out entirely, like took out everything that we had worked to build, because everything we touched turned to gold. And we made an assumption that, well, I mean, if we do this, like, everything we do just seems to always work out. We got into, this whole other vertical, this multifam vertical, just thinking like, this is just one more thing, and then had to realize, man, the level of sophistication and what you need to learn, and what more you need to learn. I mean, you just have to start actually becoming good at what you do, instead of just being. I mean, you can't hustle. There comes a point where you can't hustle your way out of the issues that you've created.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a few things. Number one, like, how would somebody become good at data? And then number two, I want to talk about women in real estate, since, it is a big thing we were talking about off the podcast. But before we do that, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Many people want to talk about how much money they make, But what's more important is how much money they keep. That's where my company, TrueBooks CPA, comes in. We help real estate investors and business owners across the country with all types of tax and accounting services. This includes bookkeeping, tax planning, tax preparation, and CFO consulting. I can tell you, my businesses have exploded since I started taking my accounting seriously. And if you want to do the same, you can go book a free call at truebookscpa.com. Once again, that's truebookscpa.com. One of the hardest parts about real estate investing is finding a good contractor. That's where Southwestern Custom Construction comes in. They've been doing remodels in Nevada and Arizona since 2006. As a fully licensed and bonded general contractor, they're able to help with any type of renovation, all the way from an entry-level fixer-upper to a custom luxury home. Southwestern Custom Construction specializes in working with investors. I've personally used them on many of my projects, so I know their team is legit. If you want to get a bid on a project, head over to customhomenow.com. Once again, that's customhomenow.com. One of the best ways to get off-market real estate deals is through cold calling. And if you want to reach as many people as fast as possible, then you need Batch Dialer. With their predictive dialing technology and built-in CRM, Batch Dialer is one of the top dialers in the industry. You can switch between single or multi-line dialing, as well as do voicemail drops and call recordings. And for being a listener of The Ryan Pineda Show, you'll get a 7-day free trial. Just go to batchdialer.com/Ryan. Once again, that's batchdialer.com/Ryan. Now, back to the show.
Okay, so a lot of people listening to this podcast are obviously hustlers, entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm still the same way. I mean, I'm here talking about it like I'm just this data nerd now. Like, not the case. Like, for me, I just hire people. You know, my sister, my marketing director, they're looking at the data, they're compiling it, and then, like, I just want a simple thing of, hey, here's the ROI. Should we do more? Should we do less? Like, here's how many leads, and just like the simple numbers. Like, what do you think?
I am the same exact way. And it's funny because if you look at my profile, I don't know if you get into like profiles and what you have a propensity for. Literally, I'm extreme on the just kind of like the direct, outgoing kind of thing, and off the charts low on detail.
So, have you taken predictive index?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, are you a maverick?
I can't remember the title, but I'm top 2 are off the charts high, bottom 2 are off the charts low.
Okay.
And same way in culture, like, you know, if you ever taken the culture, I'm literally like off the charts on both sides. If you read the description of me, it is literally the opposite of what a data person should be. Here's the thing, and this is what I tell people. Sometimes when I'm speaking, I use that as an example because people go, I know, but I'm never going to do that. Yeah, neither would I. You know, but what I am really good at, and what you're probably really good at, if our personality and the way that we show up in business is the same, we do see it. If we have it in front of us, we can see it, almost like the Matrix. It's like, okay, I'm not going to be the one to go gather that. I'm not going to write it. I'm not going to create the systems. And there's really easy ways to gather this at this point. CRMs that are specific to real estate investors. I am such a huge proponent. That's your first step.
Right.
You've got to have something that, kind of gathers your leads. And all of those CRMs have these kind of data, at least initial KPI trackers built in, right? Once you see it, you'll know what to do with it on a really high level. I'm really good at looking at data on a really high level, interpreting it, and then making decisions based on that.
For sure. And quick plug, guys, we have our own CRM at Future Flipper. You guys can go get it, like I said, at futureflipper.com. We include it with the All-Star program if you guys are in that. But CRM is how we get most of our data, obviously. And we still do some manual tracking on spreadsheets. I don't think that ever goes away. But yeah, it's like that's the best way. Like, we have a scoreboard in the office where I can just walk out because I'm not involved in the day-to-day and be like, hey, okay, we got these amount of leads, we got these amount of deals and projected revenue and close revenue. And so it really helps us out. So we have some, like you said, leading and lagging metrics that we look at.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you provide that, with your coaching. And guys, if you guys aren't using that, like if you're a part of that coaching and you're not utilizing that feature, you think you're too small to utilize it, do it now. I mean, because if nothing else, I heard you say something about social media. Man, I wish I had at least started small 3 years ago. because now you would have all of that insight and knowledge, and I don't know if it would be data, but if nothing else, you're starting to, make deposits into this data, gold mine that you will eventually have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about women in real estate. Tell me, just like, what's your experience been? Because all these events that I go to, I mean, they're predominantly male, and
For sure.
Just like, what's up with that?
So let's talk about the masterminds, and I have an interesting take on it, and I don't want to get hate from women on this because I love women. Anybody who knows me knows that when I finally, because it's very common for me to be one of one or two females in a room.
Right.
And I'm not uncomfortable with it. I think I'm like 90% dude anyway. So I think that just works out okay for me. You know what I mean? But when there is a strong woman in the room, I'm estrogen starved. I'm loving that they're there. So the first thing that I will say is, one of the things that I don't think is fair for women to do is to look at masterminds or to look at podcasts, web, and lament over the lack of representation of women in that space, right? Mm-hmm. So you said I'm the first female that you've had on the podcast.
Correct.
Or on your podcast. How many total things do you think you've done?
Well, I guess guest wise, maybe 10 to 15.
Okay, so here's what I'm actually going to tell you.
Yeah.
You probably are representing women even better than women are actually represented in the space. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So if we're not showing up in the space at a 50-50, then it's unfair for us to ask of you to represent 50% women on your panel, because that's not representative of the space.
True.
I do that in marketing, by the way, even in our own marketing that we've done in the past. My guys will. We're a woman-owned company,
right.
It's myself and my business partner is also a woman. So I think when outside marketers come in, they show you the marketing piece. There's like 60-70% women, and I will literally say, you got to get all these women out of here. Like we're talking to real estate investors, and this is a misrepresentation. Yes, it's a misrepresentation of what it looks like, so it's not going to resonate with that person. So do I think that there is a degree that it sometimes things are difficult for us? Sure, but I think everybody has their cross to bear. I think women just need to come on, girls.
Yeah.
And if we're not willing to hustle or whatever, the way that other people in that space are, that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we're a female.
Yeah.
There are things that we have to deal with as females, sure, but there's things that you have to deal with in all fairness as a white man. There are assumptions that people make of you that are unfair, or all of us have this.
Right.
And I don't understand why all of us not all of us, why people rest on, these stereotypes and things like that are legit used against you. Okay.
Yeah.
We all have it. Show up.
I hear you.
Let's do it. I will say, I feel like there's a shift. I do see a lot more women starting to, show up and starting to be in that space.
Yeah.
So I do see that.
Yeah. We have 2 coming on next week. So we're making the initiative, and I'm excited about that because I want to hear, their perspective. But, speaking of race too, that's interesting. So I'm half white, half Filipino. Mm-hmm. What? And you're from Hawaii, but what's your nationality?
I'm half white, half Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting seeing all this Asian American hate stuff recently.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it. How do you feel about it?
Gosh, I really hope that people don't take me wrong. My mother's family, when the bombing happened in the Pearl Harbor bombing, it's so interesting the way that some people react to unfairness or what have you. But when that happened, they didn't know what was happening. Nobody knew what was happening. My family tells stories about the fact that the police came to Japanese homes because there's such a huge Asian contingent in Hawaii. They came and locked them up into these camps. They weren't mistreated, but they didn't know what was happening. They didn't know who all they knew was that Japan had bombed.
Right.
So they went in, and my uncle tells the story. I'm fascinated by it, and he says, we weren't angry. I mean, and that's profiling at its best. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not suggesting that was okay, right? But what I am saying is that I think they kind of got, it was kind of like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, kind of get it. They don't know what's, going on. We're not going to get upset about this. We're not going to act like, this is the be all end all. So I would say that I don't follow, and to be fair, I don't follow the news much. Of course it's awful. Of course it's disgusting. Of course it's, but the truth of the matter is, because maybe because I don't watch it, and in all fairness, I don't look completely Asian. I get that, right? But I'm just not affected by it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I do think it's just, a fringy kind of thing. It's not representative of how everybody feels. Nobody's ever made me feel that way, and they know I'm Japanese.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I look at it, and it's I think in America you see this big debate of just, it's always been black versus white, right? And then you're seeing all this stuff with the police, and, that is what it is. It's just, it seems to dominate the headlines. With the Asian side, you never heard about it until recently. It was never like this Asian hate thing. And now I'm starting to see headlines with it. I'm like, man, is this just the news again? Just spreading some crap that you talk to my Asian friends. I got a lot of them. I'm Asian. I'm like, I've never even thought about it. I'm like, whatever.
And if somebody did, I don't even know that it would I mean, I wouldn't like it, but
even for me, I just don't care. I'm
that's what I'm saying. I think I would just be like,
whatever. Like that's
dumb.
Yeah. So, and just with even I look at it for the YouTube comments and the Instagram comments. Like, it's just literally, I mean, there's a lot of love, but then there's hate and stuff like that. But it just happens no matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you're Asian or black or white. If you're
woman, male,
you're gonna get hated on.
Yes.
No matter what.
You're going to get minimized at some point. You're going to be, you're going to be treated unfairly at some point.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying, okay, that's great. I'm saying, no, okay.
That's life.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah.
Life.
That's kind of the thing I'm at, is like, it just is what it is. Like, that's life, and you can be soft, I guess, as I would say, and let it affect you, or you can, just deal with it. Like, it's life. And, I don't know. All I know is just all I can control is how I react to things and how I choose to live my life. But speaking of, back to the women's side of things, at our company, when I was first starting out, it was strictly just hiring my homies. Like, that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, dang, we need some women in here. Like, this is not good. And but I didn't knowingly realize that, man, we literally don't have any women.
Yeah.
And my sister, who is a gay woman, is my COO of all my companies. And, she does great. And, even her and I have this conversation, how do we, become more diverse and all this? I mean, racial wise, we got everything under the sun, which is great.
Yeah.
But we recently hired a bunch of women, and I'm like, why did I hire dudes to begin with? They're better.
I'm telling you right now, if women can, I'm actually a highly emotional, intuitive processor.
Yeah.
But in business, which is why I love data, by the way, it keeps me out of my head. It makes everything a 1 and a 0, right? But in business, just because you're an emotional, kind of individual, it doesn't mean that that's how you have to show up, or you're not being authentic.
Yeah.
You can show up however it is that you need, however it serves you, and however it is that you need to. And I will tell you this, I think women are more, and first of all, I think the emotion, especially we've been talking about the power of humanity. I think that intuitiveness is so powerful if you can incorporate it without it getting, I mean, we've all worked with the person who's so emotional that they can't even function properly, and you're like, okay, come on.
Women are biologically more emotional than men.
Yep.
And that just is what it is. And I'll say, so the women we hired, we hired a transaction coordinator. She's been fantastic. I ended up having this internship that was just strictly for my house flipping business. We ended up hiring a girl to be in my education business as an admin. She's been a rock star. And then we hired one to be a sales rep at my house flipping company. and she has been like getting so many deals.
Yep.
And I had heard it, well, actually too, on our VAs for cold calling and stuff, we will only hire women. And the thing that we realized, and I've heard this statistic over and over again, but I don't know that there's a statistic or it's just subjective because we're talking data, is that like women are less likely to be treated rudely and like hung up on the phone compared to males.
Sure. And again, you can take something that you might see it as a disadvantage and turn it into an advantage. The advantage of being one of the only women in the room is that you walk in, right? So we can look at this two ways, right? I could look at it like, well, man, I have to, and I'm sorry, I know I have to work that much harder to be taken seriously.
Right.
I know when I walk in, yes, everybody's going to look, and not because it's me, but just because I look different than everybody else. So that's a positive, right? Yeah. When I walk into a room of 150 people, if I'm one of two women, everybody's going to notice I'm going to stand out just because I look different, right? The disadvantage on your end is that when you walk into the room, you're just one of 150 people. Right. Nothing about you necessarily is going to stand out unless you're doing something specific to do that.
That's why I have the hair I have, just to stand out.
Just to stand out. It's working for you. Yeah. It's working. But what I will say is that the advantage you have, though, is that I highly doubt most of the time when you walk in the room, if somebody does notice you, I don't think their thought is, I wonder if he's legit. You all kind of like have this... there's an assumption that's made that everybody's kind of earned their way to be there in their place. So the advantage I have is that I walk in the room, I do get eyeballs. Not like that. I just mean like, I get attention. Well, sometimes, but I mean, that's it. Yeah. And I'm not complaining about that. At my age, I'll take what I can get. But I will say that I know for a fact that most of the time, if somebody notices, then it's like, I wonder if she's legit. Yeah. So I could be upset about that. Yeah. Right. I also know that I got to show up bigger. I got to show, like, if I'm going to be
got a little chip on my shoulder.
Yes. If I'm going to be taken seriously, I have to be even better. Like, I have to be better than my counterpart. Right. So I can be like, oh, that's awful. Or I could be like, that's right. Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Well, too, it's just everybody has something wrong with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I walk into a room, right now I'm still relatively young compared to a lot of people in the rooms we go to. Like, okay, who's this like young punk? Like, what's he doing, right? Yeah. And then you get like an older guy who, you're like, all right, that guy, he's been around for a long time. He knows it. He must know his stuff, right?
If you call me a grizzled veteran, I'm really like, this is over. We're done. Like, if you're comparing me, like if you're saying you're the young guy and I'm like the old crotchety guy, I'm gonna be like, come on, man.
Well, you probably do have at least what year did you start?
1999.
99. Okay, so I started in 2010. So
yeah,
you got double the experience I have.
Okay,
but it's all good. So I just think everyone's got a disadvantage.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's advantages and disadvantages for both of us, and it's about what I say this all the time. All of us have two stories to tell, right? Because I'm telling you right now, nobody knows the lows that I've experienced. I've been through some really crazy, difficult things in my life, in a way, and I mean some stuff that very few people will ever have to experience. Okay, I have also experienced highs that I think only a fraction of the population will ever experience. Okay, right. So two stories, both are true. Yeah. Which one am I going to tell? Yeah. I want to tell the one that gives me energy and power, and I'm not denying that this is true, right? And I have to acknowledge it, and sometimes I even have to deal with it. Right. But why would I want that to be my primary story? Right. Why would I want to lead with that? Yeah. Yes, things suck. I'd rather talk about what gives me life. Yeah. And rather than giving this any power unnecessarily.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
So we were talking off camera about this as well, since my presentation was on social media. Yeah. And I was like, man, every time we do these podcasts, everybody always wants to either talk about how they're going to take social media seriously, or maybe they already are big on social media or whatever, but we end up talking about it. I'm like, do I need to just create a segment on the podcast? And we like brainstorm, like, maybe I'll just call this the Social Snapshot, just where we could talk about it, whether you're asking me questions or whether I'm like, asking you how you did it. And for all you listeners, and if you're watching on YouTube, comment below if you think that's a good idea, if I should make the social snapshot like a regular thing. And if so, what should we include in it? Should there be like me Q&A in them? Like, you tell me. Let me know in the comments. But anyways, for this first ever, maybe last ever, who knows?
Depending on what the
Depending
data
on
tells
how the
you.
comments tell me. The data, depending on how the feedback goes. For this first or last ever social snapshot, I don't know. What do you want to know? You were talking to me about TikTok.
Yeah, actually, you know what? To be fair, and I think that this is something that will, probably be a question in other people's minds, because it is in mine. There's no question that social media is powerful. And anybody who's going to try to, minimize the power of it, I mean, it's almost not even worth the conversation at that point.
Right.
You saying you're not going to do it is fine.
Yeah.
But you saying it's not powerful is, come on.
Yeah.
For someone like me, that is, we'll call it a more experienced investor. And frankly, I really, at the bottom of my soul, I know this is going to sound awful, but I hate social media with a passion. And that's my thing, because it triggers insecurity on
Right.
my end. And I'm acknowledging it, right? But I know I have to do it.
Advantage, disadvantage, right?
Yes, of course, right? And so, by the way, the juice is worth the squeeze, in my opinion. So we're kind of making a better, we're going to be making a better effort at that. But I do have questions then about like what you should focus on. Should you stick to something that seems more age appropriate, like Facebook, or whatever?
Whatever platform you use, you definitely age yourself for sure. I told everyone in the room that. I go, how many people like Facebook's their primary platform? It was like the majority of the room. I go, that makes sense.
Well, and just so that you know, the vast majority of people who sell homes tends to be in the upper age range. So I'm going to say that I do that because it's strategic.
You're being very strategic.
Yes, I'm just being strategic.
Yeah.
That said, if you told me that you talk about TikTok.
Yeah.
And there is something in my head. It's not a mental barrier. Like, it's not disdain. I think it's powerful. There's no question about that. But I'm also very big on showing up in somebody's space and honoring that space, right? So if Instagram is about beautiful, imagery, then I personally, I'm not judging anybody for showing up any other kind of way, but I kind of think you should show up and respect what has been created. Right. So if I'm gonna do Instagram, it's not just gonna be these weird, word only kind of refurbished kind of thing. Otherwise, just don't do it. That's kind of how I feel. So when it comes to something like TikTok, that is definitely a younger vibe, how would someone, like me, show up and still respect the space, but also manage in my head, like, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So I think the first point you hit on is absolutely correct about you're using the term respect the space. I think about you want to make content that is native to that platform.
Yeah.
And so when I look at a YouTube video, right, I wouldn't put they have YouTube Shorts now, which are a copy of TikTok. Instagram has IG Reels, which is a copy of TikTok. But that's not necessarily what those spaces were meant for. YouTube is for long form content and highly edited videos, and that's what it's meant for. TikTok is meant for a little more lighthearted, quick, catchy videos, lots of cuts and text. Like that's what they want to see. That's what they're expecting to see. Like you said with Instagram, you're not expecting to see just these text pictures. In fact, if you have a lot of text on your picture, Instagram will push it down. They do not want to see that. And so it will get less views than if I post a picture of my family. My family pictures are the best ones because Instagram wants that. That's like you said, this is what we want on our field. But Instagram also is a copycat. Now they copied TikTok. They have Reels. They're heavily promoting them. They have IG Stories, which was a ripoff of Snapchat.
Yeah.
They promote those. They have IGTV, which is a ripoff of YouTube.
Yeah.
So, Instagram's like not a good example because they try and do everything. But on TikTok, what I would say is for you, we were talking about this off camera. Like, you're a very lighthearted person. Like, you're a kid at heart. Like,
Oh, yeah.
that's you. And
I'm a child.
so TikTok's perfect for you. Like, 'cause it's childish. Like, for me, it's kind of not my personality to be childish. And honestly, like, when I first started making TikToks, I was doing the dance videos. I was doing just these weird, goofy things.
Okay.
And I'll do a goofy thing occasionally because I like just switch. Like, people are like, wait, what? He just did that?
Yeah.
But the majority of my content is just like my other content. It's very factual, logical. Like, hey, here's how you do this. You know, I'm trying to just give you value and how to. I like doing that. I just think your personality would shine on TikTok, just being you.
Yeah.
And if you think, you know, I know like one of your beliefs was that, oh, people are going to think, oh, like, who's this, as you said, seasoned investor?
Yeah.
Trying to act like
be
a
relevant.
kid
Yes.
and, you know, like
Because
whatever.
I think people who knew me would get it.
Yeah.
100%, and they'd be like, "Oh, Christina," you
Yeah.
know, because that's really what I do. Like, you could follow me around with a camera and probably make 80,000 TikTok videos from, you know, the last hour of my life, and that would legit like work. But, you know, I'm thinking in my head, like, this is going out to people who don't know you. Is it going to look like contrived? Is it going to look inauthentic because they don't know me?
But I think here's the deal is like, when you're just starting to become known, I mean, nobody knows you, right? Except your family and friends, like you're saying. So you're going to put out content and you're going to put out, honestly, to put out a large volume of content, your personality just starts to come out and be developed. Like, it's impossible to make a faked video for like an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, even when I started on TikTok, I'm like, man, all the kids are dancing. They're doing, I got to do this.
Yeah.
And so I did do it for a little bit. I was like, this is dumb. Like, I'm just gonna actually be me.
Yeah.
And it works.
Okay.
Even though TikTok, you wouldn't have thought that is meant to be this how-to platform, but there's a demand for it.
Yeah.
People want to see that. They want to see information quickly.
I got so much out of your presentation, seriously, and you changed a mind that I did not think could be changed when it came to TikTok, because it's never even been a consideration. I wouldn't even have a conversation with anyone about it. And I don't know why I wasn't thinking about it this way, but you were talking about the fact that, because, you know, I'm like, listen, I serve a really high-end level of investor. By the way, that's not my hesitation. It's not like, oh, what are my investors going to, because they know, because I literally act like a child with everybody.
It ain't nothing.
So that's not the thing. The thing is, how does this serve me in any way? You know, like, that's not my audience.
Yeah.
Like, that's not my target. You know, I don't think, you know, the top 2% of investors in the nation are consuming TikTok necessarily, but you made a point of like being able to raise capital and people being willing to invest in your brand because of the presence that you've created. And the truth is, I think it's more just respect. I have so much respect for the fact that you even have the discipline to do that, because I think people think, when it comes to people who put stuff out on social media, that it's what they want to do and they love it. And that's why they're really good at it, because they just want to film all the time.
It's a job.
It's a job.
Yeah, it's a job.
It's a
sure.
job.
And you gotta enjoy it. I do enjoy it, but
Yeah.
just like any job, even if you enjoy it, there's days you're like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, it's discipline. It's like
It's consistency.
Yeah, it's consistency. It's discipline.
The one thing, you know, as we're wrapping up, what I'll say is, with leads, you're like, hey, you know, the investors, they're not on TikTok. Some of them are, number one. But number two, I've gotten so many people into my coaching programs from TikTok. They saw me on TikTok, and what happens is, you know, that TikTok's like a taste. How much can I teach you in 30 seconds, right?
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, this guy's got a YouTube. And then on YouTube, they start seeing it and they can see and get to know me personally. And so maybe TikTok for you is that just lead funnel, top of the end funnel, where it then goes to, hopefully not just Facebook, but it goes to YouTube.
No, to YouTube.
Yeah. And
YouTube sounds old enough, I think.
it's good, right? So you go to YouTube, and then they can get to know you through YouTube.
Yeah.
And from there,
You defined that journey, and it made me go, I see it.
you're driving traffic, because
I
that's
see
where
it.
the easiest eyeballs are, is on TikTok.
Yes. And I do think that any of that adds to your credibility.
Yeah. Well, and guess
to
what's
your
going to happen
presence.
here too is like, so this is filmed right now. We're going to repurpose it. We're going to throw it on TikTok. And then I'm going to be like, hey, if you want to watch the full interview, go to my podcast, right? And then there's going to be very few people who do it, but the people who do were like, yeah, that clip was cool, that 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what the whole hour's about. And
Yeah.
somebody who listens to you for an hour is very likely to become a client or a customer because, yeah.
You made that point. It was so powerful. And you just told me that you're going to put this on TikTok, which
Yeah.
means that you are forcing me. That'll be my first
Yeah.
TikTok ever.
Yep. Well,
With
let's do
Pineda.
it.
I
That's
like
right.
it.
Easy money. So you guys have to like this and encourage Christina to get in the game. So,
Oh, Lord.
well, I appreciate you doing this with me. Where can people find you?
You go
Not
to
on TikTok, but where else?
right. Easiest way, honestly, because we do so many things, is just to go to ChristinaKrause.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then that'll kind of get you to where you need to be based on what you're looking for, based on what your needs as an investor is. We'll kind of, make sure that you get to the right place from there. But that's just like an easy one place to go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll link to that down below, guys. Make sure you give Christina a follow. I'm sure your socials are on your website. And, we appreciate you for watching this. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do it on Apple Podcast and on the YouTube channel. And comment below. Should we continue doing the Social Snapshot or not? And, we'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Thanks for watching The Ryan Pineda Show. If you want to work with me, head over to ryanpineda.com. You can find my courses, coaching programs, and upcoming events. We also have free resources you can download, so head over to ryanpineda.com.